October 22, 2019, and this is Globespan 24x7 News. Good evening and thanks for joining us. My name is Shakima Day, coming to you live from Georgetown, Guyana. Here are the major headlines for today. Metan Mirzorg man who killed fisherman arrested. Islamic Trust condemns attack on high school student. Prime suspect in gold miner shooting nabbed by police. Solar farms project for regions 8-9 to benefit 20,000 people. And Blairmont factory workers resume protests. Over to you, Whitney.
Thank you, Shakima. Here are the headlines in the diaspora, the region, and around the world. Guineas in the diaspora joins 2019 Diwali celebration at the Gracie Mansion in New York. A constitutional claim filed against Trinidad and Tobago's finance minister is underway. Violent mass protests erupts in Bolivia, and Trudeau retains power under a minority government in 2019 Canadian elections. And finally, Guinean leaders sentenced over a series of mass protests. And now here's Abel Harris with today's sport headlines.
For sports headline, Futa Conquerors regain Lima Call football title, teams for annual Prime Minister T20 softball tourney drawn, and NBA #1 pick Zion Williamson to sit out start of the season.
And now for a look at the news. The man who stabbed a young fisherman to death Sunday night has been arrested. Divisional Commander Lyndon Lord said that the murder suspect, Ramesh Ramdeen, called Brafi, 20, was arrested Tuesday morning at Parika, East Bank, Demerara, by the Divisional Detective Inspector and ranks. Ramdeen is accused of stabbing Noel Rampersad, 22, and pushing him into a gutter. He was pronounced dead on arrival at the hospital. Ramdeen is in custody and is expected to be charged soon. Meanwhile, police have arrested the main suspect, wanted in connection with the death of a minor, Dion Stoll, who was gunned down during a brazen daylight robbery at Eldorado Trading, Newtown, Kitty, on October 14. More in this report.
Police is slowly making headway in their investigations into the death of Dion Stoll, a miner who was shot and killed during an attempted robbery at Eldorado Trading on October 14. The prime suspect, Delon Demon Morgan, also called Shane Morgan, was earlier today arrested by ranks at a roadblock on the Covent John Public Road, East Coast, Demerara, at around 5:45 hours. Still on the run is Lennox Estwick, 23 of Lot 640, South Emilius Ward, Linden. Meanwhile, the other suspects who were arrested will be held in custody for another 7 days. Those extra days are critical to build a solid case against the alleged perpetrators, including a Kitty businessman. Investigators recently obtained the necessary court permissions needed to keep the men in custody. Among those arrested are Dr. Alonso DeSantis, businessman Wayne St. Hill, Steve Rolex, including a few other persons. On the morning of October 14, Stoll, in the company of his driver, turned onto the driveway of Eldorado Trading in Newtown Kitty, Georgetown, the leading gold dealer in Guyana. Closely following behind was a white car. In under 2 minutes, the gunmen exited their vehicle and accosted Stoll and his driver, attempting to rob them. Stoll was shot in the stomach, but did not survive his injuries. His driver was shot in the arm, while a security attached to the company was also injured. CCTV footage captured the entire ordeal. According to reports, the plan to rob the miner was in the making for months. Investigations are continuing. In the meantime, Stoll was laid to rest today in a very highly emotional ceremony. For Globespan 24x7 News, Shakima Day.
In other news, at the weekend, there were reports that the National Agricultural Research and Educational Institute, NARI, had imposed a ban on the importation of citrus, peppers, and cabbages. However, in a statement, NARI clarified that the institute is in fact tightening up on the importation of citrus, peppers, and cabbages. In the statement, NARI warned importers of the need to obtain the requisite permission from the National Plant Protection Organization, which is a department of NARI. The statement further added that it is crucial that these commodities adhere to the necessary phytosanitary requirements and pest risk analysis, since if these requirements are not satisfied, these commodities will be rejected. The institute is especially guarding against the importation of any citrus products, such as oranges, limes, grapefruits, and tangerines, citing the introduction of certain pests and resulting plant diseases into the Guinean citrus industry. NARI in the statement highlighted that one of the pests the institute is very concerned about is the citrus greening, which usually has far-reaching and devastating effects on crops. Citrus greening is spread by a disease-infected insect, the Asian citrus plicid, and has put the future of citrus production at risk. Infected trees often produce fruits that are green, misshapen, and bitter, unsuitable for sale as fresh fruit or for juice. Most of the infected trees die within a few years after first contact. But in a separate report, Agriculture Minister Noel Holder relayed that there is no government-imposed ban on citrus fruit importation. As such, a move would be impossible, given that Guyana is signatory to the CARICOM Single Market and Economy and World Trade Organization. The minister stressed that being a part of these two organizations, a member state is not allowed to act extraordinarily. Hence, the government is not in a position to ban anything. In fact, Holder is quoted as saying that the Ministry of Agriculture does not ban anything, since they do not have the authority. Holder also stressed that the governing laws do not permit the Ministry of Agriculture to be a part of the process. He detailed a process where a license is first obtained from the Business Ministry. He further noted that NARI NIPO, National Plant Protection Organization, has the authority to refuse imports that have not met the sanitary and phytosanitary requirements, that process is separate from the one of banning of something. In order for agricultural products to be imported into Guyana, one has to have the necessary documentation, which includes a pest risk assessment to determine that the produce is free of all pests and diseases. Besides that, importers of such products have to be duly licensed. Globespan 24x7 News reached out to Dr. Homenot for a further comment on the issue, but he was unavailable to comment at the time. However, Globespan 24x7 News will provide a detailed update on the new developments in a subsequent report. The Wauna Primary School in Region 1 Barima Waini is now open. The $10 million facility was commissioned by Minister within the Ministry of Social Protection with responsibility for labor, Keith Scott, on Saturday. The minister said that the commissioning is another promised delivery by the coalition government. He told students that their school is destined to transform the life of any person who walks through the door. Beyond the academic, the school will also provide technical education to students in the higher levels. From his department, Minister Scott said that trainers from the Board of Industrial Training will guide those students who wish to pursue studies in the technical field. These students will be exposed to training in refrigeration, electrical installation, welding and cooking, among other courses. Eventually, information technology will be taken to the community, and by extension the school, a move Minister Scott said will aid development. The Department of Education in the region has already budgeted for some microscience kits, which will allow teachers in the absence of a science lab to carry out experiments until the science lab is built. Remember to like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel for the latest in news in Guyana, the Caribbean, and around the world. Coming up on the other side of the break with Kingsley Bryan.
Globespan GT is a proud sponsor of Globespan 24x7 News. Here are some exciting news from Globespan GT. Fares have dropped for next year, starting January 20 to August. American Airlines has cheap fares on non-stop flights to New York. Flights are as low as $306 one way and $540 round trip, all tax included. Take advantage of these cheap fares on American Airlines non-stop flights to New York. Globespan has also cheap fares to Miami, Toronto, Canada, and the Caribbean. Call Globespan GT in Georgetown at 227-1701, that's 227-1701, or in Rose Hall call 337-4298, and New Amsterdam at 333-6230. That call Globespan GT in Georgetown at 227-1701, that's 227-1701, or in Rose Hall call 337-4287. and in New Amsterdam at 333-6230.
Thanks for staying tuned. We continue tonight's news by telling you that the factory workers of Blaymont Estate resumed their protest actions on the afternoon of October 21 after the Gaisuco failed to budge and rather chose to ignore their valid and principal concerns regarding the breakdown of the system regarding promotions at the estate. This morning, the workers continued their protests as they staged a picketing exercise calling on the corporation to recognize what clearly is a discriminatory approach by the sugar company. The workers, like the GAWU, are also peeved about the several inaccuracies the corporation outlined in its statement of October 18. The GAWU said it is not daunted nor will it abandon its ideals and objectives. The Gaisuco, by its unfortunate stance, is serving to affect its production drive, which should be accelerating at this time. The GAWU, nevertheless, remains hopeful that the corporation could come to its senses and do what is right. And we'll tell you now that following the unfortunate incident at a secondary school in Berbice, where a student was stripped of her hijab and assaulted, the Ghana Islamic Trust has issued a call for the incident to be investigated by authorities in the Education Ministry. More in this report.
Just a few days ago, a video circulated on Facebook with a teenage girl in uniform being assaulted by another teen. Minutes into the video, her hijab was ripped off her head. The girl was identified as 16-year-old fifth-form student of Tagore Memorial Secondary School. Her assailant, a classmate from the same institution. According to media reports, the teen is now traumatized, with the family seeking legal intervention to receive justice. This incident sparked an outrage, with citizens demanding that something be done to address bullying. One such was the Guyana Islamic Trust, who condemned the attack. In a statement, the Ghana Islamic Trust and its woman arm, the National Islamic Sisters Association, stated that they are shocked and dismayed by the incident. The GIT pointed out that, open quote, the hijab is a symbol of modesty and Muslim women should be free to express their religious beliefs by choosing to wear it free from victimization, end quote. Our prayers are with the student whose religious freedom was desecrated, ironically in an environment that ought to preserve the rights of our nation's children by providing them a safe learning atmosphere free from discrimination, bullying, and violence. The Guyana Islamic Trust is therefore calling on the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Social Protection, the religious bodies, parents, guardians, and all other relevant institutions and stakeholders in our society to stand firm against violence and religious discrimination. According to media reports, the teen was allegedly attacked after the assailant claimed that she called her friend a bad word. Despite denying the allegation, she was attacked by the student while others stood around recording the traumatizing ordeal. It was highlighted that the incident was reported and the student was given 3-day suspension, but yet family members believe more should be done. Meanwhile, efforts were made to contact the Chief Education Officer, Marcel Hudson, but this proved futile. For Globespan 24x7 News, Shakima Day.
We'll tell you now that the townships of Bartica, Madia in Region 8 and Lethem in Region 9 will benefit from an overall of 3.15 megawatt solar-powered mini-grids system totaling $1.7 billion. The project is being funded by the Inter-American Development Bank and the Ghana Energy Agency. The 1.5 megawatt solar photovoltaic power plant at Bartica will benefit 15,000 residents, while the 1 megawatt Lethem solar will benefit an estimated 5,000 people. Presently, Bartica in the Cuyuni-Mazaruni region has an installed capacity of 4.4 megawatts. Madia in the Pataro-Siparuni region has 1.2 megawatts, whereby Lethem in the Upper Takatu, Upper Essequibo region has 3.06 megawatts. Lands have been identified for the projects. In Bartica, 7.5 acres of land, and Lethem, 5.2 acres. Tendering for the construction of Bartica and Lethem solar farms will officially be opened on November 26, while tenders for the Madia project will be conducted separately. The projects fall under the government's renewable energy solution for the Hinterland Initiative. It is aligned with the country's Green State Development Strategy framework. Separately, the Caribbean Court of Justice, the CCJ, will begin hearing arguments in a groundbreaking case involving member states of the Caribbean Community, CARICOM, that is expected to shape the Caribbean landscape and work environment in the long term from today. According to the Caribbean Court of Justice, the court has convened a hearing today in its headquarters in Trinidad for further directions in an advisory opinion being sought by the regional body, CARICOM. The matter relates to whether a CARICOM state can decide to refuse allowing regional workers to integrate in that country as provided for under the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas. The revised Treaty of Chaguaramas allows for the free movement of various classes of workers seeking employment in other member states. This addendum was recently agreed to at a recent conference of heads of government of CARICOM, where it was decided to expand the class of workers. There was initial rejections to the amendment, with at least one member state expressing their disapproval to the plan and exploring how it could opt out. CARICOM explained that the case before the CCJ concerns whether a member state can, pursuant to Article 27(4) of the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, lawfully opt out of a decision of the Conference of the Heads of Government, taken under Article 46(4) concerning the expansion of classes of persons entitled to work and move freely in the community, and whether the nationals of those member states which opt out of a decision under Article 27(4) can nevertheless derive the benefits of the decision. End of quote. The CCJ has since noted that this is the hearing of the first request for an advisory opinion under the interpretation and application of the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, filed at the court. The case is expected to be a closely watched one, as the movement of workers has been an issue on the forefront burner for some time now, with many arguing that the positions of many countries goes against the push for regional integration and cooperation. While several countries have been conforming to the new paradigm, there have been several complaints about a select few not recognizing the need for adaptive change. Guyana has continually been lamenting the treatment meted out to Guyanese at the Trinidadian and Barbadian airports by their respective immigration officials. The revised Treaty of Chaguaramas establishing the Caribbean Community, including the CARICOM Single Market and Economy (CSME), was signed by heads of government on July 5, 2001 at their 22nd meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government in Nassau, the Bahamas. Globespan 24x7 News will continue following these messages.
To keep up with breaking news in Guyana, the rest of the Caribbean, and on the international scene, like, follow, and subscribe to Globespan 24x7's Facebook and YouTube news page. Join the conversation, get live news on the go, and news and details right here on Globespan 24x7 News.
TravelSpan is a proud sponsor of Globespan 24x7 News. TravelSpan has some cheap fares to Guyana on American Airlines flights. Fly from January for $234 one-way and $512 round-trip. Take advantage of these cheap fares on American non-stop flights from JFK to Guyana. That's non-stop flights from JFK to Guyana starting as low as $234 one-way and $512 round-trip. And also has the cheapest fares for Christmas that starts as low as $799 round-trip. TravelSpan celebrating 25 years in business with over 10 offices to serve you. Call 718-845-0437. That's 718-845-0437. Or book online at travelspan.com. Book early and save.
Good evening and thanks for staying with us. And now for a look at what's happening in the diaspora. Last evening, residents of New York, including a large number of Guyanese, were in attendance of Mayor Bill de Blasio's 2019 Diwali celebration at Gracie Mansion, but the Hindu population is questioning why the mayor is hesitant in making the day a public school holiday. Despite the mayor's proclaimed support for the Hindu community, which spans the Guyanese and the Caribbean diaspora as well as India, some members declined invitation to last night's event to protest the mayor's non-action to make Diwali public holiday. Last night, during his feature address, Mayor Bill de Blasio noted how important it is to commemorate the auspicious day in such a melting pot as New York, where cultural diversification is peaking, but still no decision was taken to add the holiday to the school calendar. Last month, the mayor added another public school holiday by extending the winter break overlooking Diwali, and in 2015, de Blasio declared Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha and the Lunar New Year as public school holidays. From a practical standpoint, the administration is required by state law to offer at least 180 school days, and today the academic calendar has 185. Officials, including Consular General of the Republic of Guyana Barbara Atherley, was present at the grand event, which boasted food, music, and cultural representation of what Diwali is like around the world. Mayor de Blasio, in his feature address, ushered in the Festival of Lights by pointing out the importance of its significance, the triumph of good over evil. Guyana has joined with the rest of the Caribbean counterparts to enhance efforts as it relates to the Caribbean water security in the region. The sole water distributor of water in Guyana, the Guyana Water Inc., last weekend participated in the 28th Annual Caribbean Water and Water Waste Association Conference and Exhibition, which took place in St. Kitts and Nevis. The goal of the conference was to explore and address the challenges Caribbean nations face in developing sustainable water strategies. Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Honorable Dr. Timothy Harris, indicated that an urgent need has arisen to address water challenges in the Caribbean and the world at large. The Prime Minister made specific mention of UNESCO's International Hydrological Program, which he says provide expert guidance through initiatives and tools that promote sound governance and management of water resources. The 28th Annual CWA Conference was staged under the theme Securing the Caribbean's Future, Financing Water and Waste Sectors. According to reports, a constitutional claim has been filed against the failure of Finance Minister of Trinidad, Com Imbert, in his capacity as chairman of the Joint Select Committee on Energy Affairs to convene a meeting of the JSC for close to 2 years. A statement said as part of the constitutional motion, attorney and former United National Congress Senator Wayne Sturge is seeking to have the court grant an injunction preventing government from making any further decisions regarding the sale of the Petrotrin refinery until the matter is heard and determined. A report confirmed that Attorney General Gerald Ramdeen yesterday filed the action at the Port of Spain High Court, claiming that the failure to hold a meeting of the JSC on energy affairs over the past 20 months has had the intent and effect of preventing Parliament from holding the government and the executive, in particular politically, to account when the government and the executives are taking decisions that will have irreversible impacts upon the country and its citizens. South America has seen a number of violent mass protests in the last couple of weeks, with Bolivia being the latest, as angry protesters ravaged at least 9 cities in Bolivia amid ongoing confusion over the result of the presidential election. Suspicion arose among opponents of the incumbent Evo Morales after the quick count was surprisingly halted. His main rival, Carlos Mesa, said the quick count results were fraudulent. While counting is still underway with Morales in first place, there is currently with not enough of a lead to stave off a second round. Bolivian Supreme Electoral Tribunal is currently running 2 separate counts. The quick count at 95.6% of votes verified puts Morales ahead of Mesa with a lead of 9.33% points. That is just short of 10 percentage point advantage he needs to win outright in the first round. If that result were to be confirmed, Mr. Morales and Mr. Mesa would face each other in a runoff on December 15th. The detailed count shows the two neck and neck with 72% of votes counted. Morales just had a 0.58 percentage point lead over Mr. Mesa, making a second round highly likely. Thousands of people have taken part in a huge cleanup operation to remove oil and tar from beaches along Brazil's northeastern coast. According to reports, volunteers as well as government workers used wheelbarrows, spades, and plastic gloves to remove the thick tar from the sand and water. Authorities said the source of the spill, which was first detected on September 2nd, remains a mystery. Meanwhile, experts say this could be the worst disaster for the region's coral reefs. At least 15 sea turtles, 2 seabirds, and 1 fish have been found dead, the environmental agency BAMA said. It was not clear if the volume of oil was increasing or decreasing, and how long the problem, which has affected 187 places in 9 states, will last. On Thursday, President Eduardo said tests had proved the crude oil was produced in Venezuela, but officials had not been able to identify the vessel responsible for the leak. He said this did not mean that Venezuela was responsible for the leak, but described the situation as unprecedented. Venezuela, however, has denied responsibility for the oil. President Donald Trump has said that the congressional impeachment investigation that may seek to remove him from office is more of a lynching rather than an investigation. The president condemned the inquiry in a tweet as without due process or fairness or any legal rights, but Democrats were outraged at the president for invoking such a grim and racist chapter from the U.S. history. Lynching refers to historic extrajudicial executions by white mobs mainly against black people. White House spokesman Hogan Gidley told reporters on Tuesday that Trump did not mean to be racially insensitive. The president has used many words, all types of languages, to talk about the way the media has treated him, the deputy press secretary said. The impeachment inquiry is examining whether the Republican president abused his office by improperly pressuring Ukraine to launch an investigation into former U.S. Vice President Joe Biden, a leading candidate for the Democratic 2020 presidential nomination. Trump denies holding U.S. military aid to Ukraine to encourage it to investigate Biden's son, who worked for a Ukrainian gas company. Justin Trudeau's Liberal Party has retained power in a narrow Canadian election win, but he will now be Prime Minister of a minority government. According to a report by the BBC, the Liberals are projected to win 157 seats, 13 short of majority, and will find it harder to pass legislation in Trudeau's second term. With the way things are going, the opposition Conservatives are expected to win the popular vote but have not translated that into seats. They are projected to take 121 up from 95 they held before, although Monday night's results saw a sharp decline in seats for the country's left-leaning New Democratic Party. Its leader, Jagmeet Singh, could become the new kingmaker. The NDP is projected to take 24 seats in the 338-seat parliament. Quebec's Separatist Party, which competes only in that province, fared much better. It is expected to take 32 seats compared to 10 it won in 2015. Turnout is currently listed at 66%. Globespan 24x7 will follow the elections closely and keep you posted on what is the outcome. MPs in the United Kingdom have rejected a proposal to examine Boris Johnson's Brexit bill in the Commons in 3 days. The Commons supported the withdrawal agreement bill earlier, but have now voted against the short timetable. Earlier, the Prime Minister warned that he would seek an election if MPs dismissed the plan and the EU granted an extension to October 31st Brexit deadline. After the vote, he told the Commons there would be a pause to legislation until the EU had stated their intentions. A spokesperson for the European Union Commission said the Commission take note of and expects the UK government to inform the Commission about the next steps. Johnson told a member of parliament that he was disappointed they had voted for a delay and said UK now faces uncertainty. But he said his policy remained that Brexit would go ahead and at the end of the month, adding one way or another, will leave the European Union rather. But the SNP's leader, Ian Blackford, said it was another humiliating defeat for the PM, and MPs had spoken with a very clear voice to tell the PM he is not on. Reports today confirmed that 5 leaders of a Guinean opposition alliance have been sentenced in connection with a series of protests that hit the country last week. The leader of the National Front for the Defense of the Constitution was sentenced to a year in prison. 4 other leaders were given 6-month sentences and 2 acquitted. The leaders had been accused of insurging and disturbing the public peace. The defense lawyers of those sentenced have said they will appeal against the judgment. The demonstrations were called over the possibility of President Alpha Conde running for a third term, but the authorities did not approve the protests, and at least 10 people died in violence as police clashed with demonstrators. The government said it strongly condemned and regretted the violence. Indian software giant Infosys has launched an investigation into allegations that senior executives have been increasing profits through irregular accounting. The investigation is prompted by complaints made by a group of whistleblowers against the top executives of the company. The company's share plunged 16% after a letter with the allegation was leaked to the local media yesterday. One of India's biggest success stories, the company is also Asia's second most valuable IT service firm. Infosys says the complaints are being dealt with in an objective manner. In a letter dated September 20, 2019, a group of Infosys employees accused CEO Sahil Parkid of unethical practices to boost short-term revenue and profits. They also alleged the CFO Roy was compliant and claimed to have emails and voice recordings that they said supported their allegations. The two have not commented on the allegations. Almost 150 civilians were killed during protests in Iraq earlier this month as a result of security personnel using excessive force and live gunfire, a government committee has found. About 70% of deaths were caused by bullet wounds to the head or chest, according to the committee's report. Chaos followed commander losing control of their forces, and many senior officers should be sacked, it added. The protesters demanded jobs and an end to corruption and better public service. Fresh demonstrations are planned for this Friday and the first anniversary of the Prime Minister taking office on Friday as well. The Prime Minister has promised a cabinet reshuffle and a package of reforms to address the protesters' demands. A struggling property firm has reportedly accepted a rescue deal with a generous payout for controversial co-founder Adam Neumann. The deal will see current investor Japanese firm SoftBank buy billions of dollars worth of WeWork shares, including almost $1 billion from Neumann. The agreement, which also includes $5 billion in debt financing, gives SoftBank control of the company. It follows the collapse of WeWork's plan to raise money via stock markets. The Wall Street Journal first reported terms of the rescue plan. It said to value WeWork at about $8 billion, a sharp come down from nearly $50 billion SoftBank estimated when it invested in WeWork previously. And that has brought us to an end of news in the region and around the world. Let's join Kumar Doshi at our studio in India for today's Tech News. Whitney Prasad reporting from New York for Globespan 24x7 News. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Namaste, salam and good day to everyone. Thank you for tuning in to TechBeat on Globespan 24x7. Today's Tech News is day 2 of a series on computer ports. Continuing with Universal Serial Bus or USB, it is designed to standardize the connection of peripherals to personal computers, both to communicate with and to supply power. It has largely replaced interfaces such as serial and parallel ports, and is now conventional with most devices. Shifting attention to host, receptor and ports, the slot where one end of the USB cable is attached to the computer, the back or front of a CPU cabinet, or the sides of a laptop is called the USB port. The electronic devices like keyboard, mouse and printers are receptors. Different versions of USB like USB 1.0, 2.0 and 3.0 are associated with functionality and speed of the USB communication. The type of USB cable like Type A, Type B and Type C essentially refers to the physical design of the plugs and ports. The most popular USB standard is Type A, which is most likely on host devices like desktop computers, gaming consoles and laptops. Type B connectors are almost square in shape and found on printers and scanners. Micro USB is a miniature version of the USB interface developed for connecting compact and mobile devices such as smartphones, MP3 players and GPS devices. One of the newer USB cables on the market is the Type-C. Micro USB is only being replaced by USB Type-C since it can offer high data transfer speeds and versatility. Unlike other connectors, this one is actually reversible, meaning that it can be plugged in upside down if you want. It also offers data transfer speeds much higher and is generally thought to be more powerful. It's become a standard for many new laptops, tablets, and smartphones. USB 4 is soon coming, and it's going to make your gadgets transfer content a whole lot faster. The USB 4 specification has now been published and will probably appear in devices in late 2020 or early 2021. Tomorrow, we will talk about audio and video ports, its types, and the functions. That wraps up for the Tech Beat for today. I'm Kumar Doshi, bringing tech news from India. Back to our studio in Guyana for more news to come. Thank you.
Thanks, Kumar. We will now take a look at Orbit reports. And now for a look at what's happening in the world of sports with Abel Harris.
Thanks, Shakima. Into sport, Fruta Conquerors FC have completed yet another perfect round of the playing the Limacol football tournament. The team overcame their rivals, Santos FC, 2-0 in the final of the tournament on Sunday evening in the Ministry of Education ground, Carfest Avenue. The match lived up to its anticipated hype, with fans biting nails coming down to the end of the matchup. Each team had consecutive attempts to penetrate the other's goal, resulting in the game heading into extra time, as no one could score a goal before the end of the initial 90 minutes. It was an impulsive effort from Captain Nicholas MacArthur that allowed the Fruta Conquerors to surge ahead, with his timing proving perfect as he headed the ball past the Santos keeper to secure the first goal of the tournament. MacArthur soon capitalized on a sensational through ball from Ryan Hackett and slipped it skillfully by the keeper for a second goal of the match and ultimately the tournament decider. The Fruta Conquerors FC in the end carted off $400,000 while Santos FC took home $20,000. In the third place playoff, Rhythm Squad edged out Peel with a lone goal in the closing minutes of their game to cop the $100,000 prize, and Peel received $50,000. MacArthur picked up the most goals and awarded for his 12 goals, inclusive of 2 hat-tricks, along with being adjudged the most valuable player of the tournament. The teams in the annual Prime Minister's T20 Softball Cup have been drawn and are getting ready to take the field for yet another highly anticipated competitive tournament. Last Sunday at the GNIC Sports Club ground, Wolford Avenue, Georgetown, the 26 teams confirmed their participation in 3 categories that were placed in the groups ahead of the November 1 tournament. In the male open and master categories, there are 8 teams drawn into 2 groups of 4. Each team will play the other teams in their group with the top 2 teams, and after their 3 preliminary games qualifying for the semi-finals. The organizer, Georgetown Softball Cricket League, INC, will release the full fixtures, including the match venues, shortly. Meanwhile, sponsors have also confirmed their support in the 3rd edition of the prestigious tournament, since they anticipate tremendous exposure and ultimately value for the advertising dollar. Last Thursday, GLCL's treasurer Russell Jubir was in hand to collect sponsor street contribution from Inkplus, KFC and Elegance Jewelry and Pawn Shop. Zion Williamson, the #1 pick by the New Orleans Pelicans in this year's NBA draft, will miss the start of the season with a knee injury. The Pelicans confirmed in a statement that the 19-year-old had undergone successful arthroscopic surgery on a torn right lateral meniscus. It is estimated that Williamson will return to 6 to 8 weeks. The 19-year-old sensation picked up the injury during the preseason and missed the Pelicans' final warm-up game. He was named the Associated Press Men's College Basketball Player of the Year last season, as he averaged 22.6 points and 9 rebounds in 33 games his one season with Duke. Williamson has suffered knee injury since sustaining a knee sprain when his shoe split in half while planting his foot, causing him to miss a few weeks of action. That's all for sports. Over to you, Shakima.
Thanks, Abel. And that has brought us to the end of today's news. But before you go, here's a recap of our major headlines. Metin Mirzorg man who killed fisherman arrested. Islamic Trust condemns attack on high school student. Prime suspect in gold miner shooting nabbed by police. Solar farms project for regions 8, 9 to benefit 20,000 people. And Blairmont factory workers resume protests. Thank you for watching Globespan 24x7 News. On behalf of myself, Shakima Day, the news and technical team in Guyana, New York, and India, until next time, do have a great evening.